and that third guy calls you and says, hello, sir, if we replace all your problems are solved, would you buy that? Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of Hanif Mechanical.
Something is wrong with my car. All the warning lights came on and I had to pull over. I'm just south of exit 50.
They tried to read fault codes, but they couldn't. There was no communication. So they decided to tow the car to a workshop. And that happens to be my old workshop.
I need urgent assistance. I'm on the shoulder cave highway. My engine light.
The car is still driving, but when it arrived at my place, it didn't. So a middle-aged African-American man had to push it into the shop.
Disconnected. This is the way I got it. Probably the other shop did some testing. I don't have the full story. Now,
get some life back into this vehicle. Right now, the tailgate is up, but it keeps falling down, as you can see. Now, a young African-American female mechanic, I have to give up on my long-lasting dream to become an international model, and I'm not ready to do that yet. All jokes aside, we need to fix this.
Let's take a look at that battery. Now, let's see what's going on with the battery. At this point, I'm not sure, but we have got no lights on the dash. Let's take a look at that battery. Now, let's see what's going on with the battery. At this point, I'm not sure, but we have got no lights on the dash.
Let's take a meter and let's see what we've got. A little over 3 volts, so definitely a battery issue. I don't know why the battery is empty. Left something on during measurements or whatever, but when it arrived here, it was dead. So for now, I'm gonna hook up my battery maintainer. Hooked up the battery.
Let's turn on the ignition. The lights are on. That was an empty battery. Let's see if it starts now. Oh, not yet. Needs to charge longer.
It does, and it does. And let's see what we've got. You can see there is a warning light on the little cluster. And on the big cluster, we got several warnings.
I was getting ready to read fault code, so hooked up the dongle to the diagnostic port right there. But as you can see, my dongle isn't turning on.
The screen stays black and it doesn't turn on. By the way, the ignition is on. Now, this is probably exactly the same thing that both the roadside assistants.
We're definitely missing something in that diagnostic plug that prevents the dongle to turn on. So the next step, I want to hook up a breakout box.
Diagnostic connector. The diagnostic connector has got 16 pins. Once the breakout box is hooked up to that connector, each of those pins is
This port's over here, then in those tiny holes in that Snorts U diagnostic connector. So let's hook it up and let's see what we've got.
16 is a power feed and a red LED would light up, and pin 4 and 5 are the grounds. And we should see a green LED over here.
We are missing a power feed, pin 16 in the right lower corner. That is a red wire with a blue or purple tracer and a yellow dot.
Anyway, let's take a look at a wiring diagram and let's find out where that power is coming from. I looked up a wiring diagram for that diagnostic connector.
And on pin 16, come on, zoom in. There we go. On pin 16, we can see our red, blue, yellow.
Fuse number 3 is located in the footwell fuse box right here. It's the third from the top. It's a 5 amp fuse. So let's see what we've got. Power there.
So it definitely looks like a broken fuse. Let's quickly confirm that. Let's remove it. Hold on. Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that.
See if it blows. It doesn't sound like it. Let's see if we get power on both sides now. And we do. So let's see if we now can communicate.
Wow, that's annoying. Hold on. Ah, that's better. We can see we've got 13 and 12 volts because it's still hooked up to the battery.
Now communicate with the new fuse installed. The dongle does turn on and we are communicating right now. That's awesome. So that's gonna take a while. I'll get back to you once I've got all.
This time it only shows us one branch of the network. It only shows us modules connected to the body bus like the airbag, the instrument cluster, and the radio, for instance.
It doesn't show us any modules connected to the powertrain like the engine or ABS. Now it does this when it can find those modules, but we still cannot communicate with the powertrain. I quickly grabbed my laptop and looked at a wiring diagram. Now, let's go through this together.
But that's for communication between modules and not for communication with the diagnostic tool. Now, everything that's connected to the body first reports to the
Train CAN bus communicates through a single wire that Mini calls diagnostic bus on pin 7. The next step, I want to grab a scope and look at the difference.
Got the breakout box hooked up to the diagnostic connector, and on the other side of the breakout box, there's an adapter where we can still hook up a dongle.
radio, which we already know we can. And at the same time, we're going to look at the screen of the Pico, and we're going to treat that as a known good to see what the communication is.
Which we already knew because we can communicate on pin 8 with the body. Now let's switch the lead from pin to pin 7. My lead from pin 8 to pin 7 where the powertrain communicates on. And this time we're going to try and communicate with the ABS, which I already know we can't. We're trying to communicate with the ABS. Not only could we not communicate with the ABS or anything else on the powertrain, there was also zero activity on pin 7.
Modules can pull down to ground in order to communicate. Now, since there is nothing, we could have a broken wire, we could have a shorted wire.
Breakout box is still hooked up to the diagnostic connector, and I got one side of my test light hooked up to pin 16, which is a power feed. Now, when I touch a 7 stays lit. Now, I don't know if it's supposed to do that. Now, let me show you what happens when I touch pin 7. The light lights up, and where the real challenge starts, because that short to ground can be anywhere. It can be in a wire, it can be in a module. Now, I looked at a wiring diagram, hydraulic power steering, and the steering angle sensor. So I think we're gonna start by unplugging them one by one to see if that short disappears. It has got 2 connectors. Now, I haven't looked up which connector holds the purple and white wire that runs to pin 7. Both disconnected, but the short is still there. With the engine computer disconnected, we're gonna move on to the next one, and that's the ABS module. The ABS module lives right here. Watch if that light goes off. So disconnecting the ABS module right now. Come on, there we go. It's not off yet. There we go, it's disconnected. More to go. The next module I wanted to disconnect is the steering angle sensor. Now, the steering angle sensor is located right here.
That this connector was disconnected all along. I didn't do that. But when I located the steering angle sensor, I found this connector. The steering angle sensor is not causing our short, and we've got one more module to go. The electro-hydraulic power steering unit is underneath the vehicle. I'll try to disconnect that connector from underneath the vehicle. Now, if the short is not gone by now, we got even a bigger challenge, because then the on jack stand. So in the next step, I'll try to crawl underneath it and disconnect the connector for the power steering. If that's causing our short, the light will go off. See what you guys are seeing, but I can see the connector and I can reach it, and I'm disconnecting it right now. Or at least I'm trying to, it's quite hard.
You tell me. I can't see it from here. Did it turn off? So it looks like the short was in the power steering. So in the next step, we need to reconnect the engine computer, scan the entire vehicle again, and as you can see, the powertrain brands of the network is back again. We can now read fault codes. Test your turn. Scan the entire vehicle again, and as you can see, the powertrain brands of the network is back again. We can now read fault codes from the scan the entire vehicle again, and as you can see, the powertrain brands of the network is back again. We can now read fault codes from the ABS engine and steering angle sensor. Has been offline. My first priority is to get everything back online again. And you might have noticed that the power steering, the electro-hydraulic power steering, is still missing.
Tomorrow, so we'll replace it tomorrow and see what we're left with. Hi everyone, good morning or good evening or good afternoon. It depends on when you're watching this video.
A conventional hydraulic steering rack. If you look closely over there, you can see the connector I disconnected yesterday, and it's very hard to reach the corner that runs directly to pin 7. Now, when I disconnected that, the short was gone. So it looks like the short.
This is the main plug that runs to the motor, and this is the plug that we disconnected where the communication wires come in. So in the next step, let me remove that old pump, and maybe we can see something wrong with it. A quick update on my progress trying to remove this power steering unit. It's quite straightforward. So that's definitely where the burning smell is coming from. I don't know if I'm going to be able to remove this connector without damaging it, but I'm certainly going to try.
The connector on the side of the pump. Now that's not an issue, but this is. Look at the state of that connector on the car side. That definitely needs some love and attention.
To be installed. I cleaned the connector as good as I could. I checked the pin fitment, and that's actually still pretty good for now.
This is not something they have in stock. Ordering it will take several days, and I want to get this diagnosis done. So I'll leave it up to the other shop.
Unit. So the new pump is installed. I still need to fill it up with oil. And ideally, I would first like to see if we can communicate with it.
I want to risk that. So we have to fill it up with oil first, and then we're going to see if we can communicate with it again. So the reservoir for the power steering is...
Now, we're gonna check it again once we have run the pump, because obviously there's still air in the system. Steering again. Before we continue and see if we can communicate with the power steering again, we first have another issue to solve. I tried to turn on the ignition, but it wouldn't. That battery doesn't hold a charge anymore. It's toast. I tried to hook up the battery charger again so we at least could turn on the ignition, but...
We first have to replace that battery before we can continue. Now, we do have these batteries on stock, so let me quickly change it, and then we can also decided to clean the terminals. I removed that crown point and cleaned underneath it because it was in pretty rough shape. Again, and look who's back. And it doesn't even have any fault codes. Now, and check for any leaks. I was checking the level of the power steering fluid, and I was looking at this coolant reservoir and I was wiggling it and I was
Let's top up the coolant. I think it's gonna like that. And of course, I'm gonna ask the other shop to check why there is little coolant in his reservoir.
It feels like I'm doing a service here instead of a diagnosis, but it never hurts to check the oil. Look at that. Hope you can see that. But there's
I really don't suspect there are. We can lower the vehicle and we can see if we can clear the fault codes. I'm also going to make sure that this little cooling fin kicks in module, and that's the ABM. Time for a fourth Caucasian woman in her 20s to take a look, but this is exact as the scan tool is done scanning.